My name is Selena Monroe. I'm a hematologist, a single mother, and the woman who kept my son's father a secret for 21 years. And when my mother, Judge Lorene Monroe, threatened to stop the bone marrow transplant that could save my son, wielding the same legal power she'd abused for decades, my son stood up, his voice shaking but unyielding. "I'm 21 now, Grandma. I'm an adult, and I choose my father." That was the moment I knew. The silence was over, and the real story, the one about love, redemption, and family, was finally beginning. Before I share the full story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you've ever chosen love over fear. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happened next. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter like a live grenade. Presbyterian Hospital's logo stared back at me, and I already knew what it would say before my trembling fingers tore it open. 21 years of running from the truth, and here it was, typed in cold medical terminology. Isaiah Monroe, acute myelodysplastic syndrome, matched donor urgently required. I'd been through this dance before. As head of hematology at Queen's General, I'd tested everyone, colleagues, distant cousins, even that guy from the bodega who'd offered when he overheard me crying on the phone. No matches. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. I could save other people's children, but not my own. Isaiah didn't know I was standing outside his studio apartment at 2 a.m., watching him through the window as he painted. Even sick, he moved with purpose, each brushstroke deliberate despite the exhaustion I could see in the slump of his shoulders. He'd inherited that focus, that artistic soul, just not from me. My phone felt like lead in my pocket. One call. That's all it would take to shatter the carefully constructed life I'd built. One call to the man whose name I'd never spoken aloud in 2 decades. Rowan Sloan wasn't hard to find. His face graced Forbes covers and TED Talk thumbnails. CEO of Prism Media. Married? Divorced? I'd never let myself look that deep. The rain started as I walked back to my car, and I laughed, a harsh, broken sound. Of course, it would rain. It had been raining the night I decided to keep the baby, to drop out of Yale, to never tell Rowan about the life growing inside me. My mother, the Honorable Judge Lorene Monroe, had made sure I understood the consequences. "That boy is poison, Selena. One word to him, and I'll make sure he never sets foot in a courtroom without handcuffs." But Isaiah was dying. My beautiful, brilliant son, who thought his father was a one-night stand who'd vanished into the ether. The lie had been easier than the truth. That I'd loved his father so fiercely it had terrified me. That I'd chosen to protect us both by letting him go. I typed the message before I could stop myself. "Isaiah is dying. Only your blood can save him." My finger hovered over send. 21 years of silence about to end with 8 words. Rowan's response came at 3:17 a.m. "Who is this?" My hands shook as I typed, "Selena Monroe, our son needs you." The 3 dots appeared and disappeared 6 times before his message finally came through. "I'm on the next flight to New York, no questions, no accusations, just action." That was so like him. Or at least like the boy I'd known, the one who'd painted murals on abandoned buildings and talked about art like it could save the world. Before my mother had whatever conversation had sent him running back to California without a goodbye, I'd believed her version for so long. "He took the check, Selena. $50,000 to disappear. What kind of man sells his love for money?" But late at night, when Isaiah would tilt his head a certain way or bite his lip while concentrating, I'd see Rowan and wonder if my mother had lied about other things too. The attending physician at Presbyterian, Dr. Kumar, didn't sugarcoat it. Without a matched donor in the next 2 weeks, we're looking at complete bone marrow failure. "I'm sorry, Dr. Monroe." I wanted to scream that doctors should never apologize. We fight until the last breath. Instead, I held Isaiah's hand while he slept, memorizing the constellation of freckles across his knuckles. He'd been documenting his illness through art, canvases filled with abstract swirls of red and white, cells dividing and dying in violent beauty. "Mom!" His voice, hoarse from the chemo, startled me. "You've been crying." "Just tired, baby." He studied me with those green eyes, Rowan's eyes that saw too much. I've been thinking about my father lately. Weird, right? 21 years of not caring, and now, he gestured weakly at the IV drip. Now I wonder if he'd care that I'm sick. The lie I'd rehearsed so many times stuck in my throat. He would care, I whispered. He would care so much it would break him. Isaiah's brow furrowed, but before he could question my certainty, a nurse came in with his medications. I escaped to the bathroom, pressed my forehead against the cool tile, and tried to remember how to breathe. Rowan would be here in 6 hours. The boy I'd loved was now a stranger in expensive suits, and I was about to detonate the careful fiction of our son's life. But Isaiah needed his father's marrow, his blood, his genetic gift of survival. I just prayed we'd all survive the truth. I almost didn't recognize him. 22 years had transformed the lanky art student into someone who commanded attention just by existing. Rowan stood in the hospital lobby wearing a perfect charcoal suit, but his hands were shaking. Selena. My name on his lips was a ghost made flesh. Thank you for coming. Professional, distant, safe. His eyes, Isaiah's eyes, searched my face. You said, our son? Isaiah, he's 21. I watched him do the math, saw the moment understanding crashed over him like a tide. You never knew, I never told you. 21 years, his voice cracked. Christ, Selena. I led him through the maze of corridors, each step heavier than the last. Outside Isaiah's room, I stopped. He doesn't know who you are, thinks you're a potential donor from the registry. Please. You want me to lie? The hurt in his voice cut deep. I want you to save him first. We can deal with the rest later. Isaiah was awake, sketching despite the tremor in his hands. He looked up as we entered, and I watched Rowan's face crumble for just a second before he rebuilt his composure. Isaiah, this is Mr. Sloan. He's here to see if he's a match. My son smiled, that crooked, charming smile that was pure Rowan. Thanks for coming, man. Not many people would fly across the country for a stranger. Rowan's voice was steady when he replied, You're not a stranger. Your mother, she helped my company once. This is the least I could do. The lies multiplied like cancer cells, but what choice did I have? Isaiah was too weak for emotional upheaval. I watched them interact, my son showing Rowan his sketches, talking about his exhibition plans. After all this is over, while Rowan asked careful questions, memorizing every word, the blood draw was quick. Rowan rolled up his sleeve, and I saw Isaiah notice the faded scar on his forearm from the motorcycle accident sophomore year, the one that had terrified me so badly I'd spent 3 days refusing to leave his hospital room. Motorcycle? Isaiah asked. Rowan glanced at me, young and stupid. Cool, I've got one too. Isaiah pulled down his collar to show a surgical scar. Though mine's less badass, just cancer. Rowan's jaw clenched. You're going to beat this. Yeah? Isaiah's voice was small, scared. You sound pretty sure. I am. Rowan looked at me then, and I saw 22 years of questions burning in his eyes. Some things are worth being sure about. The test results came back in record time. Perfect match. Of course they were. Isaiah had inherited his father's blood type, his bone structure, his artist's eye, and now, hopefully, his chance at survival. I found Rowan on the hospital roof, staring at the Manhattan skyline. He'd loosened his tie, and for a moment, I saw the boy who used to climb fire escapes to paint the sunrise. She paid you to leave? I couldn't help the accusation in my voice. He turned, and the fury in his eyes made me step back. Is that what she told you? Your mother threatened to have me arrested, Selena. Said she'd fabricated evidence of me dealing drugs. Said I'd never see daylight again if I didn't disappear. The world tilted. What? She showed me photos, doctored, obviously, but convincing enough. Said judges had connections, that she'd bury me and make sure you watched it happen. His laugh was bitter. I was 19 and terrified, so I ran. But the money... What money? He pulled out his phone, scrolling through old emails. I kept everything, hoping... God, I don't know what I was hoping. Look. Email after email from him to my Yale account, all bounced back. Letters returned to sender. She controlled everything, I whispered. My email, my mail, even my... The realization hit like a physical blow. She told me you'd moved on, showed me pictures of you with another girl. There was never anyone else. The raw honesty in his voice undid me. I threw myself into work, built an empire, all while wondering what I'd done to make you hate me enough to vanish. Voices rose from the stairwell, loud, argumentative. We both froze as Isaiah's voice carried through the door. I'm not stupid, Mom's friend. Same eyes, same build, even the same way of tilting his head when he's thinking. So why don't you tell me why my father is really here? We burst through the door to find Isaiah standing, wavering but standing, in front of a terrified-looking intern. Isaiah, I started. No. He turned to us, chest heaving with exertion. 21 years of lies, and you think I can't recognize my own father? I've been staring at his face in the mirror my whole life. Rowan stepped forward, steadying Isaiah as his knees buckled. Easy, son. Son. Isaiah laughed, but tears were streaming down his face. Yeah, that's what I am, right? Your son, the one you never knew existed. The truth hung between us like a blade, ready to cut us all to pieces. Isaiah's room became a confessional. He sat propped against pillows, IV still attached, while Rowan and I unraveled 21 years of lies. My son listened with an artist's attention to detail, occasionally asking questions that cut straight to the bone. So grandmother orchestrated everything? His voice was eerily calm. I nodded, unable to meet his eyes. She thought she was protecting us. From what? From love? Isaiah turned to Rowan. Did you love her? More than breathing, Rowan answered without hesitation. Still do, if I'm being honest. I felt my carefully constructed walls crumble. Isaiah watched us with those two knowing eyes, then pulled out his phone. He scrolled through photos of his paintings, stopping at one that made my heart stop. I painted this last year, called it Father Unknown. The canvas showed a figure composed entirely of negative space, present in absence defined by what wasn't there. It was Rowan, captured perfectly in emptiness. I always knew something was missing, Isaiah continued. Not just a father, but a piece of our story. You'd get this look sometimes, Mom, like you were seeing ghosts. Now I know you were. The transplant was scheduled for tomorrow. Rowan would give part of himself to save the son he'd never known existed, and I would watch the two people I loved most endure pain I'd caused by trying to protect them. I'm not angry, Isaiah said suddenly. Well, I am, but not. It's complicated. He looked at Rowan. Will you stay? After? If you'll have me. I want to know you, want to understand where I come from. Mom showed me the world through medicine, but this, he gestured at his paintings. This comes from you, doesn't it? Rowan's eyes filled. Your grandmother sent me one photo before she cut me off. You were 3 days old. I've carried it for 21 years. He pulled out his wallet, extracted a worn photo. I used to imagine teaching you to paint. Isaiah studied the photo, then his father. It's not too late. I'm a quick learner. That night, I found them together. Isaiah in bed, Rowan in the chair beside him, both sketching on hospital napkins. They drew the same view from the window but interpreted it differently. Isaiah's strokes were bold, aggressive, fighting against the dying light. Rowan's were careful, precise, preserving each detail like a prayer. Mom? Isaiah called softly. Come here. I sat on his other side and he took both our hands. We're going to be okay. All of us. We have to be. The morning of the transplant, Judge Lorene Monroe arrived like a storm in St. John Couture. 22 years of controlling our lives, and she still entered rooms like she owned them. Selena. Ice could have taken lessons from her tone. I heard you've made some unfortunate decisions. You mean telling the truth? I stood between her and Isaiah's room, where Rowan was being prepped for surgery. I mean exposing our family to scandal. That man is nobody. That man is Isaiah's father. My voice carried through the ward, drawing stares. And you're the one who robbed them of 21 years together. She straightened, the familiar threat in her posture. I protected you. Protected Isaiah from growing up with an absent father who'd chosen art over responsibility. He never chose anything. The words exploded from me. You threatened him, manipulated evidence, destroyed any chance we had. You made me believe he'd abandoned us when really you drove him away. I gave you a future. Yale-educated, chief of hematology, respected, alone. I stepped closer. You gave me success and loneliness. You gave Isaiah a void where his father should have been. You gave Rowan 21 years of not knowing his son existed. Nurses had stopped pretending to work, openly watching our confrontation. Let them. I was done with secrets. My mother pulled out a folder, because of course she'd come prepared. Power of attorney, medical directives, all signed when Isaiah was born. I can stop this transplant. Try it. Isaiah's voice rang out strong despite his weakness. He stood in his doorway, Rowan beside him in surgical scrubs. I'm 21, grandmother, an adult, and I choose my father. You don't understand the implications. I understand perfectly. Isaiah moved forward, Rowan steadying him. You're scared. Scared that people will know the mighty Judge Monroe couldn't control her daughter's heart. Scared that your reputation matters more than your family's happiness. She turned to Rowan. This will be everywhere. The media will destroy all of you. Rowan smiled. Not the polished CEO smile, but the reckless grin of the boy who'd once spray-painted "question everything" on the courthouse steps. Let them come. I've got the best story, finding out I have a son and getting to save his life. Try spinning that negatively. My mother's mask finally cracked. You're making a mistake, Selena. No, I said quietly. I made a mistake 21 years ago when I let you convince me that love was dangerous. This is me fixing it. She left without another word. Isaiah sagged against Rowan, but he was smiling. Did we just win? Yeah, son, Rowan said. We won. 6 months later, the Brooklyn Museum of Contemporary Art hummed with opening night energy. Isaiah, healthy and vibrant, guided guests through his exhibition. Bloodlines, a story of cells and connection. The centerpiece made my throat tight every time I looked at it. Rebirth, a massive collaborative work between father and son. Isaiah's bold, visceral style merged with Rowan's technical precision, creating something entirely new. The painting showed 3 figures emerging from red and white, blood cells transforming into human forms, reaching for each other across the canvas. The technique is extraordinary, a critic murmured. The way the styles complement rather than compete. I watched Rowan explain their process, his arm around Isaiah's shoulders. They'd spent months in the studio together, making up for lost time one brushstroke at a time. Isaiah had inherited his father's perfectionism, but tempered it with his own raw emotion. The result was art that breathed. Dr. Monroe? A young resident from my hospital appeared at my elbow. I wanted to thank you. Your speech at the International Hematology Conference about ethics and family donors, it changed how I think about medicine. I'd laid bare our story at that conference, speaking about the intersection of personal and professional, about how love and medicine intertwined in ways textbooks couldn't teach. The standing ovation had surprised me less than the emails afterward, from other mothers, other secrets, other families finding courage to heal. Rowan found me on the museum's roof garden, the city lights below echoing the stars above. Hiding? Breathing, I corrected. It's still overwhelming sometimes, having you both here. He pulled me close, and I let myself lean into his warmth. We weren't together, not exactly. 21 years created gaps that couldn't be bridged overnight. But we were finding our way, relearning each other between Isaiah's exhibitions and family dinners. I have something to tell you, he said. CNN wants to do a feature. About us, about Isaiah, about making peace with the past. What did you say? That I'd talk to my family first. He smiled. All of my family. Inside, Isaiah was being interviewed, gesturing animatedly as he explained his work. He caught sight of us through the window and waved, that brilliant smile lighting up his face. He's remarkable, Rowan said softly. You did that. You raised an extraordinary human being. We made an extraordinary human being, I corrected, even if it took us 21 years to raise him together. The past couldn't be changed, but watching our son thrive, watching him paint his truth across canvas and into the world, that was worth every painful step that brought us here. 1 year later, the gallery was smaller, more intimate. Isaiah's latest exhibition, Art and Bloodlines, featured portraits of transplant survivors and their donors. But the final piece was what drew the crowd. Mother, father, me. 3 panels, each painted by one of us, showing the same moment from different perspectives. The day Isaiah left the hospital. My panel showed medical charts transforming into birds, taking flight. Rowan's captured the light through the hospital window, fracturing into possibilities. Isaiah's was pure emotion, a figure stepping from shadow into blazing color. You ready? Isaiah asked, adjusting his tie nervously. You're asking us? Rowan laughed. You're the artist here. We're all artists, Isaiah corrected. We've been creating this family from scratch, right? Making something from nothing? He had a point. Every dinner, every shared laugh, every difficult conversation. We'd painted our family into existence, one careful moment at a time. The doors opened and people flooded in. I recognized faces from support groups, from the hospital, from the survivor networks Isaiah had joined. He'd become an advocate, using his art to fundraise for bone marrow registries, turning our private pain into public purpose. Dr. Monroe? A young woman approached, clutching a baby. You probably don't remember me. But I did. Sarah Chen, whose daughter had needed a transplant 2 years ago. The baby, healthy, giggling, reached for my necklace. This is Selena, Sarah said, tears in her eyes. We named her after you, after what you said about fighting for family, about truth being the best medicine. Rowan's hand found mine as Sarah walked away. You saved more than just Isaiah, he murmured. We all saved each other. The evening blurred, speeches, tears, laughter. But the moment that crystallized everything came near the end. A young man approached Isaiah, medical bracelet visible on his wrist. I'm starting treatment next week, he said quietly. I'm terrified. Isaiah didn't hesitate. He pulled the stranger into a hug, then introduced him to us. These are my parents. We've got a complicated story, but the short version? Love finds a way. Blood finds a way. You're going to make it through. Later, as we locked up the gallery together, Rowan asked the question that had haunted us all. What if you hadn't called me that night? I considered it. All the alternate paths, the what-ifs and might-have-beens. Then I looked at our son, paint under his fingernails, hope in his eyes, alive and dreaming. I did call, I said simply. That's our story. Not the 21 years of silence, but the moment I broke it. The moment we chose each other over fear. Isaiah put his arms around both of us. Best plot twist ever. We walked into the night together, not victims of our past, but authors of our future, painting tomorrow with all the colors we'd almost lost.